The 2000s was a time of great change, and fully experiencing the decade meant embracing new technologies. What were some of these changes? How was life different than in previous decades? In the 1990s, the American family began to look very different from the traditional model of a father, mother, and two children. This trend continued in the 2000s, as more and more single-parent families emerged. Also, as parents divorced and remarried, many children found themselves with parents and step-parents. Young adults began delaying marriage until later in life. In 2000, 31% of women between the ages of 20 and 24 were already married. By 2010, only 19% of women in this same age demographic were married. Also, many young adults began choosing to stay at home and delay living on their own until later in life. By the end of the decade, approximately 30% of young American adults between the ages of 18 and 34 were still living with their parents. The decision for young adults to remain at home was due, in part, to the turbulent financial climate of the 2000s. Both income and housing prices fluctuated throughout the decade. For example, in 2000, the average income was $42,350, but by the end of the decade, the average income was only about $39,400. Meanwhile, the average price of a new home in 2000 was $136,150. Yet, by 2007, this amount had skyrocketed to $313,600. By 2010, the price of a new home had lowered slightly to $272,900. The prices of other items were also inconsistent. In 2000, the price of a gallon of gasoline was $1.26. By 2008, gas prices had reached $3.39 a gallon. But by 2010, the price had once again fallen to $2.73. The prices of automobiles were slightly more stable throughout the decade. The average price of a new car was about $24,750 at the beginning of the decade, and averaged about $27,950 by 2010. Of course, the prices of all items would have varied based on brand name, make, model, and region of the country. The internet revolutionized American lives in the 2000s. Most Americans had received their first glimpse of the internet in the 1990s, but it was in the 2000s when the true impact of the new technology began to be understood. Average American families began shopping online, listening to music online, watching television shows and movies online, and even meeting potential dating partners online. Electronic mail, or email, made written communication instantaneous, and social networking websites allowed people to remain connected and experience the lives of friends like never before. Regardless of what one was interested in, they could now connect with thousands of others who shared similar interests, whether it be independent films, online gaming, fan fiction, or a local band. The cell phone also had a significant impact on American lives. While mobile phones had been in existence since the early 1980s, the devices did not become practical and affordable until the late 1990s. Throughout the decade of the 2000s, they became increasingly commonplace. In 2000, just under 30% of Americans had a cell phone. But by 2010, approximately 85% of Americans owned one. In other areas of life, some American families started to become more health conscious. Counting calories and checking the ingredients in food products became increasingly common. As a result, many American consumers began buying organic groceries. This meant attempting to purchase food that had been produced more naturally, without the use of pesticides, chemical fertilizers, or genetic engineering. Some Americans also became more environmentally conscious during the 2000s. Many cities enacted recycling programs and schools placed more emphasis on environmental concerns. From driving a more fuel-efficient vehicle to purchasing environmentally friendly light bulbs and reusable shopping bags, many Americans began making increased efforts to protect the environment. Americans have always loved to travel, and the 2000s were no exception. However, following the terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001, airline travel in America became increasingly difficult. New security measures required passengers to pass through metal detectors, have bags searched, and potentially be patted down by security officials before entering airports and airplanes. This had a significant impact on American lives, since travelers now had to arrive at airports hours before their flights, and family members could no longer greet weary travelers directly off the airplane. Despite the emergence of the internet, television remained the dominant form of entertainment in the 2000s. The most popular program of the decade was American Idol, a singing competition in which amateur performers were judged by celebrities. American Idol assumed the top spot in the ratings in 2005 and remained there for the rest of the decade. Another competition-based program, Dancing with the Stars, also proved very popular throughout the latter half of the decade. Reality television became one of the staples of American TV throughout the 2000s. Originally made popular by MTV's The Real World in the 1990s, many other programs mimicked the show's style in the 2000s. Big Brother, Survivor, and The Bachelor were amongst the most popular reality TV series. More traditional programs remained popular as well. CSI, Crime Scene Investigation, Lost, Grey's Anatomy, and Desperate Housewives were amongst the most popular hour-long dramas. Everybody Loves Raymond, Will and Grace, and 2.5 Men were amongst the most popular sitcoms. At the theater, American audiences fell in love with superheroes. Batman Begins, Spider-Man, and Iron Man were just a few of the comic book-themed movies that people flocked to see. The Lord of the Rings trilogy proved to be a huge box office success while garnering 17 Academy Awards. Animated films such as Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, and The Incredibles entertained young audiences. Americans continued their love affair with professional sports in the 2000s. The National Football League, or NFL, produced many outstanding players during the decade. Tom Brady and the New England Patriots played in 4 Super Bowls, winning 3 championships. Peyton Manning was named the league MVP 4 times throughout the decade, an award he won 5 times during his career. Kobe Bryant was the dominant player in the National Basketball Association. Bryant won 4 NBA championships and was selected to the All-Star team each year of the decade. LeBron James, Shaquille O'Neal, Tim Duncan, and Kevin Garnett were also phenomenal players. Albert Pujols took Major League Baseball by storm, hitting 37 home runs in his first season and winning the National League Rookie of the Year award in 2001. Pujols would go on to be a 9-time All-Star and hit more than 600 home runs in his career. Ichiro Suzuki made his Major League debut in 2001. He became the first Japanese position player to excel in Major League Baseball. Ichiro played in 10 Major League Baseball All-Star games and won 10 Gold Glove awards throughout the rest of the decade. Alex Rodriguez and Barry Bonds were also dominant players during the era. However, their careers were marred by accusations of using performance-enhancing drugs such as steroids or human growth hormones. In music, the most successful artists at the beginning of the decade were pop stars such as Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera. Eminem and Usher also had sustained success throughout the decade. Groups such as Fall Out Boy and Blink-182 were also popular. In country music, American Idol winner Carrie Underwood became a sensation, while Toby Keith and Kenny Chesney continued successful careers that began in the 1990s. It should be remembered that not everyone experienced the 2000s in the same way. These were just a few of the broad trends that were predominant throughout the decade. Each family and each individual had a unique situation with their own stories, tastes, and preferences.